everyone, my name is Brittany and welcome back to my channel. And today I'll be reading some of my favorite books.
It's Brittany, bitch.
It's the end of the year, and instead of doing a new reading vlog, I actually wanted to reread some old favorites. So I have a couple of favorites from my Goodreads shelf, and I kind of realized, are they still my favorite books? Do I still truly consider these favorites? And I think the answer is going to be no, but this is definitely going to be a testament to that. Before we get started, I want to let you know that, of course, I think my favorite book of maybe all time is Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. I've already reread it this year because I read the second and the third books in the series because the third one came out this year. So already know this one is still a favorite. It's still on the list. Nothing so far has trumped this book, and it is the book I have reread the most. So to me, that is definitely a favorite. And I think about it every couple months or so, and I'm already getting a hankering to reread it. So I think it's safe to say this is still a favorite, and maybe my favorite of all time. That's a little intense, but so am I. And as an FYI, I really wanted to put The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo in this video, and I really wanted to reread it because I haven't reread this book ever, and I don't know if it is still a favorite. I really want to retry it, but the waiting lists are still months long for this book, for audio and the physical books, and I'm leaving here in a couple of weeks, so it's just not really viable to try and wait it out and see if I can get it right before the end of the year. So unfortunately, I won't get to reread this book, but I'll definitely make a point to reread this sometime, hopefully next year, because I'm very, very curious about how this book now ranks. So I'm gonna go over the 4 books in this reading vlog, and I'm also gonna let you know whether or not I think it will still be a favorite as a prediction. I predict that 2 of these books will no longer be a favorite and 2 of these books still will. So I don't know if I'm gonna be right, but let's get into it. I will be rereading Scythe by Neil Shusterman. I read this right as I got into BookTube a couple of years ago, and I fell in love with the entire series. Now, I could technically add every single book from this series onto my favorites list, and I might do that when I reread them, but for now, only Scythe is on there as the first book of the series. I also really wanted my own copy of this. I've had it on my books list for a long time, but nobody's bought it, and I was going to buy it for myself, and then I realized you're moving and spending thousands of dollars. Let's not buy books right now. So I got this from the library, and this is the book I'm probably the most excited for, to be honest, because I just absolutely love this YA dystopian world. If you don't know what Scythe is about, it's a very, very famous YA series about this perfect utopian world where nobody dies anymore. So they have to have scythes who glean people and basically choose for them to die at random to keep down the population. It's a really fascinating story, and I'm really excited to get into this. I'm literally dying to read it, but I have so many other books to read first for other reading vlogs, but this is the top of my TBR right now. And if you couldn't tell, I do predict this will still be a favorite after I reread it. I'll also be rereading The Great Gatsby, which is a classic book that a lot of people love, but for me, I've loved it ever since I read it in college. I didn't love it the first time I read it in high school, but when I reread it in college, something in me just lit up. Like Gatsby at the end of his dock looking at the green light. That was me with this book. And I actually have it on audio. It's only 5 hours, so I'll probably get to this towards the end just because it's gonna be such a quick book to read, but I already reread the first page and I'm still just in love. I'm in love with the writing. I'm in love with all of the themes. For some reason, this book just tantalizes me, and I also love whenever Myrtle gets run over by a car. I just love poetic justice in books. I love that now it's dramatic irony because I already know all these things that happen, and it still, for some reason, just pulls me in. And I actually bought this from the Goodwill a couple years ago, and I've never actually read this copy. Will I ever read it? I don't know, but I did get the audiobook version so I could try to listen to it during work hours. Also, I do predict this will still be a favorite. I'm not sure if it'll ever get booted off that list, but I still think it'll be favorite after I finish this. The next book I'll be rereading is Snowflower and the Secret Fan by Lisa C. And this book rocked my world. This book made me sob my eyes out. It was so sad and depressing, and the twist towards the end just really got me and it's held on to me forever since. But I do predict I will no longer consider this a favorite. I just feel like I still love historical fiction, but the hold this once had on me has loosened. We are way back in time in China, and we're following Lily and Snowflower. So it's a very intricate historical story about foot binding. If you don't know what that is, don't look it up. It's awful.
Can't help myself.
It's so sad, but the whole story honestly is a little depressing. So just keep that in mind if you ever want to attempt it yourself. It's very sad, very historical, and it's an absolutely beautiful story. I had this book on audio, and I actually listened to it a little bit today at work, so I'm about 30% of the way into it, and Yeah, it's definitely a very sad, sorrowful story. There's lots of deaths, there's lots of like bad moments. It really tugs at your heartstrings, but I also think it's really important to talk about the foot binding because I feel like that's something that's not really talked about as often in these historical Chinese books, but wow, it just hits you. But I feel like I still will love and enjoy the book, but I don't know if it's a favorite anymore. And the last book I'll be talking about is You Suck by Christopher Moore. And I also predict this will no longer be on my favorites list. But let me explain. I read this book when I was 13, and this was my first Christopher Moore book. Even though this is technically the second in a series and I had no idea, I remember I was in my 8th grade science class. I was talking to my friend. I'm still friends with her on Facebook. I still know her full name. Like, I remember the moment so exactly. I saw this book on her desk and I asked her about it, and then I went and got it myself and read it, and I fell in love with Christopher Moore's writing. And I think that's why it's a favorite on my list, because I fell in love with his writing through this book. Will it still be on my favorites list? I actually don't think so. I think it's a great story, but I don't think it's a favorite by any means. It's not something I want to reread all the time. It's not something I think about constantly. I think it might go in the past favorites pile, which, by the way, I'm going to create, I think on Goodreads, a past favorites bookshelf, so that way I can house some of my past favorites on there as I go through this and try this new like series out for myself that I want to try to continue in the next coming years of going through my favorite books and deciding, are they really favorites anymore? And I don't think this one will pass the test, but it's still a really fun, irreverent humor novel about vampires, and it's the second in the Bloodsucking Fiends series, and it was just my introduction to this world. I'm already 40% of the way into this book, and I'm not gonna lie, it still slaps in a really fun way. I'm really enjoying it. It's a really easy, fun read, but am I feeling that favorite connection? No, I don't think so. So I'm gonna get into all of these. I'm probably gonna finish this first because I am listening to it on audio, so hopefully I can finish this maybe tomorrow or the next day and then get back to you on it, and then I'll probably finish You Suck right after that. So I'll probably give you an update on these two sometime a little bit later this week, but what a fun series, and we're gonna see how it turns out.
Holidays are coming round now, winter is here. My favorite time of the year, I could get close to my dear, my baby. I could feel a breeze coming through. I could see me and you cuddled up underneath the mistletoe. Anything that you want, just let me know and we can go.
Okay guys, excuse me if I'm a little red. I just got back from my walk and it's like 30 degrees outside, so give me a break. But I did end up finishing Snowflower and the Secret Fan today on audio at work, and I have to say that this is no longer a favorite. I enjoyed this, but will it stay on my favorites list? No. I'm gonna give this 4 stars this time around. I'm gonna round it up to that. I really enjoyed this book still, but it definitely fell flat compared to when I first read it. I just feel like this was also like the first book of this kind for me to like really read. And when I was younger, I was very drawn to the very sad, depressing, heart-wrenching books. Emo had nothing on me because all I read was really sad, heart-wrenching books like Lurleen McDaniel's. I'm gonna go ahead and try to reread her stuff eventually one day, but her stuff is literally like sad romances where like they die or something, and that was like my jam. And so this book really did something for me. Snowflower and the Secret Fan is all about Lily and Snowflower and their Lao Tong relationship. This is a relationship that is cultivated when they're really young girls, and it's like a lifetime friendship. It is like literally more important than a marriage in their culture, and it basically means they're like old sames and they are like the same person. So a lot of times they're born like the same day, at the same time, the same region, like they're basically like the same person born from different people, and they have this like lifelong relationship, and it's like so important. And these girls like basically grow up together, get their foot bindings done at the same time, they get married around the same time, they have children around the same time, like it's their lives together. And then there's just so many betrayals and things they didn't know. Like I'm not gonna spoil it for you because honestly it was quite shocking the first time I read it. Like you're just expecting something else, and in the middle of this book you're like, what? For me it was shocking the first time reading it, and even rereading it, it's still just like, oof, that's like a bit of a gut punch. Like there's a little bit of betrayal going on here in the last half, really. And there's war and famine and suffering. There's just suffering in this book. There's domestic violence. Like honestly, the triggers are crazy. Like there's so many, and I'm really surprised I can't find on any trigger warning list because there are so many triggers. There's like animal deaths, suicide, death, death of a parent, death of a sibling, domestic violence, miscarriages. Like honestly, you can think of a trigger, it's in this book. It's a very intense novel. That's all I'll say. And while I still think it's a really beautiful, heart-wrenching novel, I just feel like it hit me less this time around, and it felt more sometimes like cheap gimmicks other than like characterization. I think that's due in part to C's writing, and I read one of her books a year or two ago called The Tea Girl of Hummingbird Lane or something, and I gave that one also 4 stars, and probably how many years ago I would have given it 5 stars, but I just feel like her writing doesn't resonate as much for me anymore. It's a little more sterile, and it kind of feels like we're reading the blurbs about these people's lives rather than like actually experiencing it with them, if that makes sense. And they're not particularly special. They don't have their own like personalities per se. It's more about like the suffering and hardships they go through that make them the people they are. But I just feel like that's not a whole lot of like characterization. That's more of like bad things happen to you. This book reminds me in a way of what I think people think A Little Life is. Like, this book is full of suffering and stuff, but it has a story that I can follow. And I feel like when I tried reading A Little Life, which I've never actually finished, that book is just like suffering. And this book is too, but I feel like there's a little bit more of a storyline. But I feel like Lisa C. walked so Hanya Yanagihara could run. Okay, because I mean, and that's why I was surprised I didn't like that book. But that's a long story. Never actually finished it. May never actually finish it. I have no idea. I canceled the reading vlog it was happening in. Long story. But this book is definitely all about suffering. If you like suffering and Chinese historical fiction and you like those really heart-wrenching dramas, I think you'll really enjoy this. I'm gonna give it 4 stars. But it's just no longer my favorites list, and I kind of predicted that was happening for sure. And I just knew that it was just, I don't think about it that often. I knew it was amazing when it came out for me, and it was something I told everybody about. But now its grandeur has faded. That's all I can say. And I did get into The Great Gatsby today. I'm only 20% in, but again, gives me the same feelings as I remember. I don't know if this one will still be a favorite. We will see. I'm going to finish out the audiobook and find out. But so far, I'm still enjoying it. I think also the audiobook experience is so different from reading it physically. I've only ever read it physically, so maybe I will like it a little bit less on audiobook. I don't know, but so far, The Great Gatsby is as great as it usually has been. But I also just had a really long work day and I was a little tired, so I stopped listening to it. So I'm only at 20%, but I will get to it tomorrow and finish it tomorrow at work, and I will give you guys my opinion then. But I'm hoping this one at least will continue to stay on my favorites list. As predicted, I did finish The Great Gatsby today on audio, and I will say I think I definitely prefer reading it to listening to it. I also am just not sure if I didn't really love the narrator on the one that I had. But overall, I still think this one's a favorite. It's still going to get 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. I have my laptop over here, and I'm going to read to you my original review of this from college. I just feel like it kind of sums up a lot of my feelings about this book, but also is quite funny, and I think I might just leave this review as is. So I said, I'm not usually a fan of classic novels, but after abandoning this book back in high school, I gave it another shot for a class. Unfortunately, I fell completely in love. I absolutely love this novel and all it implies. Gatsby is this over-nostalgic, ambitious dreamer who has devoted the last 5 years of his life to one woman, Daisy. I love Gatsby and his foil for the American dream and how we tend to end disappointed when things do not turn out as planned, or at the bottom of a pool. Anyway, The Great Gatsby may indeed be my favorite novel I've read thus far in my 22 years on this earth. We'll see, but this one is hard to beat. If you love the glitz and glamour of the roaring 20s mixed with the brutal reality of the backbreaking work to get there, this book is for you. With the awkward love triangle between Jay Gatsby and Daisy and Tom Buchanan, you'll be glad that you're not a single Bond salesman named Nick Carraway or a famous female golfer named Jordan Baker. Most of all, you'll be glad you're not Tom's whore, Myrtle Wilson. I just feel like some of my old reviews are really funny and I really enjoy rereading them, but honestly, that is exactly how I feel about this book. I just feel like this book is the perfect foil of an American dream in general, and the real true inner tragedy of the American dream and how so many people come here for a better life, and honestly, it is pretty much impossible to achieve even for those of us who were born here. I just don't really know if it's a possibility anymore, especially in the roaring 20s. This was such a thing, and I think it always has been, honestly. I don't know if it's ever gonna go away, to be honest. I mean, what about Manifest Destiny? Has it gone away? Absolutely not. People still move out west to make money in Hollywood and whatnot, or go to New York, and we all are chasing our own version of the American dream. I think for a lot of people, especially those of us born in America, and we are imbued with this sense of independence and the need for success, and we ruin ourselves to get there. This book just hits me every single time, especially towards the end. It is just such a gut punch, and I really enjoy it. But I think I enjoy reading it personally more than listening to it. But again, I think that was just a little bit of the narrator, but there are so many quotable things in this book. There are so many amazing quotes. It is one of my favorite quotable books of all time. I honestly should go through and annotate at one time because there's so many quotes that just speak to my soul or just so poignant of the time and of modern day. I can only say good things about The Great Gatsby, but I still have to finish You Suck, which I thought I was going to finish a lot faster, I'm not going to lie. I'm about 70% of the way through it, but I really thought I was going to finish it before I even got to The Great Gatsby, but I'm definitely slowing down a bit towards the middle, which I do find I tend to do in his books in general. Christopher Moore tends to like start off really strong and then pull me in, and then in the middle it's kind of like a little weak in terms of plot. One of the things I like about this book is there are a few Easter eggs of people from other books, so there's a few characters from A Dirty Job in this book. However, one of those is Abby Normal, who I actually really like as a character, but in this book we get to see like her like diary entries, and they're like whole chapters of her explaining what happened. I just feel like it doesn't really add anything to the story, and I really wish it was like a normal story, because her vernacular and stuff is so frustrating to get through. I know she's trying to be like a goth teenager, but it's almost like trying too hard to be relevant in what people think teenagers are like. But for some reason, her character it's just frustrating me to hell. Like her and her thoughts in those chapters are just like god awful. It's definitely tampering down my enjoyment of this book, but hopefully I can finish this by tomorrow or the next day, because I have so many books to read at the moment, and I'm still enjoying it for sure. But I'm pretty positive at this point it will not end up on the favorites list. I'm enjoying it for sure, but it's really not hitting any of the favorite spots that I want scratched. So I'll get back to you guys when I finish You Suck, which hopefully should be very soon, and give you guys my final update. So I finished You Suck, and I was right. It is no longer on my favorites list. I really enjoyed this sequel to Bloodsucking Fiends. I think it was a really like fun time, and I enjoy the overall story, but I think I just fell in love with this obviously because it was the first book of his I'd ever read, and I really enjoyed that, and I fell in love with his writing style. But is this the best of his books? Absolutely not. I was also really put off by Abby Normal's chapters. So Abby Normal is like the teenage girl in this, and her chapters are just so fucking cringe and annoying that I actually skipped a couple of them. Like I like skimmed through them to like get the gist of what was happening, because the problem is during those chapters like big action scenes would fucking happen, but the way that she describes it, like her as a narrator, was like infuriating. Like I wish her chapters never existed. And then I feel like the whole time it's like we finally get glimpses of these characters a little bit more like we did in the first book, and then it's just like makes like another hooker joke or whatever, and I just feel like there was way too many like jokes in here instead of like actual like character development. And like of course this is a humor novel, but I really could have used a little more like character development. Like there was a couple of like really good like bits, like where Jody was talking about how she's not afraid to go out at night anymore because she's the predator now, and like how that felt. And there were so many like really good moments like that, but then it was overshadowed by like slapstick humor that just did not like fit the moment. So it's just kind of frustrating. Like overall I really enjoyed this, but it's just definitely not going to be on my favorites list anymore. And will I reread it again? I don't know. I feel like this is actually like one of his like least interesting books. The problem is I love his vampires. They're really funny. Like basically at sunrise, they pass out. They're like unconscious. So if they pass out in the sunlight, they die. They like, you know, they're gone. And I really like some of the aspects of that. And they can like drink coffee and stuff if they put enough blood content in it. Like there's so many like really cool ways about the way that he reimagined vampires. I just wish there was like more character development. This one felt really like a sequel. It really like suffered from that middle book syndrome. I will definitely pick up the third book to find out how I feel about this, but overall in this series, I feel like this one's probably weaker. I think I'm also just a sucker for the cover. Like I also like love this blue color. It's like my favorite color of all time. It just got me, man. This book got me really good when I was younger, but I think I'm gonna take it off my favorites list after this. But it was a good time. The last book I have to read is Scythe, and that's probably one of the last books I'm going to read of the year, but I'm trying to hold off on it because I want it to be one of the last books I read of the year because I just fucking love that book. But I'm very excited to get into it. I really wish I had the audiobooks for it, but I don't. So we're just going to go into it, and I hope I love it as much as I thought I was going to.
I can't even see you there. Cuddle up, put it in the air. Christmas trees, we don't need. Let's just bake and roll these leaves. Let me take your stress away. It's the Hot Bucks holiday. Hot Bucks holiday. Hot Bucks holiday. Hot Bucks holiday. 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 Fire's burning, lights are dim. Christmas starts at 12 a.m. Before the eve comes to an end.
So I made this raspberry white chocolate orange bundt cake. And it was really supposed to be cranberry originally, but we didn't find any cranberries. So we made do with some raspberries, and I hope it's good. I really saved this for like 2 days. So I'm gonna give this a really nice cut. And I'm praying to God this is like good, because I've slaved over this for such a long time. Okay, it looks good. We're gonna give it a taste test. I'm scared. Okay, ready? That was good. Here, you try that now. Yes. I think it's good too.
It's delicious.
Yeah, I'm not mad at it. Anyway, success! Okay, listen up. I ended up getting Scythe for Christmas for my brother. And he got me Scythe and Thunderhead, so now I do have the full series, which is fantastic. I've been waiting for that for fucking years. But here's what I figured out. So today's New Year's Day, all right? Yesterday was New Year's Eve, and yesterday I was having a fucking freak out because I was like, oh my God, I'm not gonna meet my 115 book quota. And then I realized that, oh my gosh, I didn't post these 3 books from this reading vlog that I'd already technically read in 2022. So I ended up posting them, and then it was perfectly 115, and I was literally elated. It was like 11 o'clock at night, and all of a sudden I had this epiphany. But I found out something else, which is not very fun. I actually went and tallied up all the books I read on my Google Doc sheet that I used to track my reading, and I realized that I was missing 4 books from Goodreads. So I technically read 119 books, but only 115 were showing. So today I went through this whole fucking thing up at 2 a.m, and I was like, okay, I need to find out what these books are and why they're not showing. What I found out was one of them was Starsight, which was the first book I actually read in 2022. And for some reason, when I added the review, it didn't count the new date because I reread that book. So that was an easy fix. I went ahead and added it. Now, for the other 3 books I discovered, I think they were actually reported. I think my reviews were reported because every single one of these books, I talked about the lack of safe sex in these romance novels, and I was so fucking pissed. And I don't know if it's because I used words like condom or sex, or I was kind of graphic with it, that they were reported, and I'm not sure by who, but also if something was reported, I would assume I would get an email saying, hey, your review's been taken down, and I never got such an email. So I did go ahead and I emailed Goodreads and I made a complaint, and we'll see what they say because I'm very, very curious. But now I need to go back on and add these 3 books. So the first one is Beautiful World, Where Are You by Sally Rooney, and then Below Zero by Allie Hazelwood, and Love on the Brain by Allie Hazelwood. And at first I thought maybe it was just Allie Hazelwood like deleting my reviews or something, but I have my other reviews from her still up. So I don't really know why these ones are taken down, but I had this epiphany again this morning that those books, they all had that correlating experience in their reviews. I criticized them quite heavily for the lack of safe sex and how nobody seems to use a fucking condom in these books, especially Allie Hazelwood's books, because they're scientists. They're very, very smart, educated individuals who know birth control is not 100% effective. I mean, the amount of friends I have that are like the 0.0000001% between a birth control pill and a condom is huge. So it's just really frustrating to me that nobody in these fucking books seems to use condoms, especially these are modern books. This is not historical romance. So I was upset, and of course I always write that in my review, but I think that's why they might have been reported or taken down. But I do find it odd that I was not notified. So I'll let you guys know, but those are the 3 books that are missing. So right now it says I read 116 books, but I technically read 119, and I'm mad about that because it sounds really stupid, but I like to be exact. Like I set 115 books because I want to read exactly that book, because it's just so much easier for me to remember like how many books I've read the previous year or whatnot. I like those even by 5 numbers. They're soothing. I don't know. I don't want to read 119 books or 93 books or whatever. I want to read 100 books or 110 books or 115 books. Like, hello. So naturally, I'm like honestly fucking pissed, and I'm really mad because if that's why they were taken down, it just sucks because I don't have those reviews anymore. I don't have them. I do everything on Google Docs and I delete it. Like, I don't have them saved anywhere, and it pisses me off because I spend a lot of time on my fucking reviews, and I look up the content warnings and I place those in there, and like I just put a lot of work into my fucking reviews, so I'm so fucking mad. It's not like I gave it a 3-star and then like moved on.
How could you do this to me? Question mark.
Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something.
No, I said
you're not gonna disrespect me and my husband.
I just did. All right, have a good life or die. I don't care.
Anyway, that's what's going on. And I was actually going to try to post this in 2022. It's just not going to happen. So that's why a lot of this is from the holidays, because I really thought I was going to finish everything by, the end of the fucking year. Didn't happen. But I'm starting with Scythe now, and I'm only 60 pages in. And of course, I'm loving it just as much as I used to. And when I get farther into it, I'll let you guys know what's going on. But I'm really happy that I did actually meet my goal, but I'm pissed because I could have read less books and met my goal. And I just hate like not knowing. And now I'm gonna be like extra vigilant and count how many fucking reviews and stuff are going on. But the thing is, like, they could be deleted or reported, I guess, months later. Like, my Sally Rooney one was showing forever. And that's what's frustrating, because I know I made those reviews and I know they were showing. But the fact that they could just be reported or taken down or lost and you're not notified that the review's gone, it just kind of sucks, because it's not showing that I don't have a review, it's showing I didn't read the book at all. So that's my whole fucking gripe with this whole thing. And I'm really pissed. Like, I'm honestly really mad. So there's my complaint for the day. It's New Year's. I'm gonna go for a walk really quick and I'm gonna make dinner, which is gonna take me a hot minute. I'll let you guys know when I get farther into Scythe, but so far I'm really loving it. But I'm so pissed about these weird book revelations. So I'll keep you guys updated. If I get an update during this reading vlog about what's going on with those books, that would be great to know. But I mean, I'll get a response for quite a while. So we'll see. So we're gonna try this again because I just tried to film while I was driving, and ordinarily it would probably be fine, but my phone fell like 3 times. There was an accident, there was traffic, someone almost sideswiped me. Oh, no. Oh, yeah, there was an accident. Concept in general. Oops. Stay. Oh my god, this car is literally so fucking close to me. God, stay in your lane. Everyone here drives like a fucking idiot and they're rude. I just feel like I couldn't really focus on what the fuck I was saying. So I want to let you guys know that I am almost done with Scythe. I'm probably like 85% of the way into it. I'm on part 4 now, and I definitely have to say this is probably still a favorite because I'm really enjoying it. Even though it's taking me a little bit longer than I was hoping to read it, I'm also kind of like savoring it because I feel like it's one of those books that's really easy for me to like just devour, and I kind of want to devour it slowly and I want to absorb it a little bit better, because the first time I feel like I missed a couple of things because I read it so fucking fast. And sometimes when you read really fast, you're enjoying it, right? But then I feel like I forget little things. Like, I completely forgot how much fucking plot is in this book. Like, the amount of plot that they shove into one fucking novel is absolutely insane, because I thought half this should happen in the second novel, because, I mean, goddamn, like, this whole thing is just plot. That's the thing. I do love high concept, plot driven YA books. So we're following Rowan and Citra as they are training to become Scythe. They are Scythe apprentices, and they're both chosen by Scythe Faraday, and then it's decided that they both have to like fight against each other for like the one position, and if you lose you get gleaned, which means you get killed. Gleaning equals killing. They just don't call it killing because that's like barbaric or whatever. And I think it's really interesting because at some point Rowan gets chosen by Scythe Goddard, who is like a madman. He is a batshit crazy Scythe who is like a serial killer. Like, he loves killing. He thinks you should take pride in it. He's like, I'm a god, like, bow down to me. He's really interesting character. But I kind of love and hate that he does mass gleanings, which is why he is so polarizing of a character for me. And let me explain why. I'm not an asshole, but a lot of the Scythes try to replicate human history, and they try to replicate the age of mortality, which is like the age we live in now. Like, if I got into a car accident, they can't revive me and put me back together 100%, right? You could die, you could lose a leg, yada yada. And obviously in this world that doesn't happen. If you get hit by a car, you can get instantly taken to a revival center and you're 100% better within a couple of days. And a lot of the Scythes try to like make deaths based off of the age of mortality. They're like, how many people died in parking lots, therefore I chose you to die today in a parking lot because you were shopping. And that's how a lot of them choose like their victims or the people they choose to glean. And so I kind of love that Scythe Goddard does mass gleanings, because mass murders are a thing today, or an airplane crash, or a building catches on fire. And that sounds so freaking terrible, but I really thought that was a really smart thing to put in the book, because it makes him more of a gray character for me instead of just like a complete monster. Because if you're using the age of mortality issues to base your kills on, those did happen. Like, people did die in plane crashes, etc. So it kind of almost makes sense, except for the one Scythe that uses a flamethrower, which is like disgusting. But upon reread, this book is more gray than I remember, and I think it's also showing my gray more morals as well. You can think I'm an asshole. That's totally fine. I'm not supporting mass gleanings or mass murders in real life. I'm really not. But I just think it's interesting. As an interesting point. The other thing I will say about this book is when I first read it, I thought the romance between Ronan and Citra like came out of nowhere. But upon a reread, I realized that so much more was hinted to it. I think I just read it too quickly. But I still don't really think that their romance is necessary. I really wish they would just become more like best friends and confidants versus like lovers. But it's a YA book. I understand it has to like go in there. And obviously romance does make it more interesting for a lot of people. Even though there's technically a romance in this series, it's just not between these characters. I think that was romance enough for me, but whatever. I'm definitely enjoying it. I think almost even more the second time, just because I'm really soaking it in. So anyway, I will fill you guys in whenever I finish it on my final thoughts. And I will also fill you guys in on what Goodreads said, because they responded. And I'm gonna tell you right now, it's fucking sus. I don't trust these bitches. They never answered my fucking questions. Something's up. Okay guys, so I ended up finishing Scythe like 2 days ago. And I have to say, it is still a fucking favorite. This book just slaps. I really, really want to read the second book in the series, but I'm trying to hold off so bad because I kind of want to do it in another like favorites test video, because this was really fun for me to like go back and reread favorites. I think especially because I knew a lot of these were 5 stars originally, and I think like unfortunately I end up sometimes picking books I don't really like all that much. So I think picking books and rereading them that were at least 5 stars at one point usually ends up like better. It's gonna have a better outcome. I'm gonna be happier. I'm gonna rate them higher. I'm gonna have a better reading experience. So I really want to go through my favorites list and reread some more. I think next month, after I move at the end of this month. But I really, really want to read The Thunderhead right now. And Scythe is like many years old, but I still don't want to ruin it for you. But like as the first in the series, it is just fucking incredible how much they pack into this book and how it leads into other things that happen. This book I think is still maybe one of my favorite out of the series. But again, I have to reread it because maybe they all technically deserve to be my favorites list for different reasons, but this one's just an introduction to the world. We get crazy Scythe Goddard, who is just unhinged in the best way, even though he's kind of like an assault to the Scythedom in general, and he is just, there's something like wrong with this dude. He's obviously like a serial killer. He's a little off the charts, but he's very fascinating to read. And I think he's not as black as people think he is. You know, he's more of a gray character, I think, as many of these Scythes are. And I think that's why he's fascinating in general, because he's kind of like not wrong about some things. And I think that I identify more with his thoughts as I get older and reread this. And that may make me sound like a terrible person, but like this is also a fake universe. And I'm just saying, like, when the villain starts to make sense, are you now the villain? But anyway, I think a lot of the characters in here make sense. I can relate to a lot of them. I like the way they think. And I think it's just such a fascinating world to begin with. And then all the things that happen and all the rules that kind of get broken or bent to like allow certain things is just fascinating. And it's such like a political minefield. Like this book is that. And it's just so interesting to see how the characters navigate it. And it's also fascinating that Neil Shusterman put this together that way. I actually like the way that he did this. Like the plot just fits together in such an interesting way. And things come out of left field, but like at the same time, you're like, how did I not see that or anticipate it? Because they're such good plot twists that they're interesting and they're not poorly done. I think everything of these books are very well done, especially the first one. Like it's pristine. And I just find it absolutely fascinating to read books that have such political minefields where like you never know which way things are gonna lean, and you're always like leaning on the side of good, but it's kind of like sometimes rules are meant to be broken. And that's what I'm trying to say, is this book is the amalgamation of that. Anyway, I've blathered on way too long about this fucking book. I just find it incredible. I think our favorites are favorites for a reason, and this still definitely stands to just be one of the most invigorating books I've ever read. It just makes me think, and I think that a book that makes you think is probably a good book. Even if you don't agree with some things that happen or you don't like some of the characters, it still gets you to churn your wheels and think about life and death and mortality and morality and question these choices. If there's any book from this reading vlog that you were curious about, I would recommend this one above all else. Anyway, if you've been here this long, thank you for watching. Let me know if there's any other books off my favorites list you'd like me to reread, because my favorites list is a bookshelf on Goodreads. You can definitely see all the books that I have on there, and I will be moving the other books I chose not to continue with as favorites on my new past favorites list. I'm really just going to try to go through my favorites list this year. I think that's a goal of mine, because this was such a fun reading vlog, and it's fun rereading 5-star books that you loved originally, even if you don't end up loving them again. At least they're not bad reads. Like I don't think I'm going to read any of my 5-star books and think they're 1 star, which is a win for me. I don't know why I'm holding up my coffee. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and please drop down any of your favorites so maybe I can read some of your favorites eventually. Anyway, have a wonderful day. See you guys next time. Bye!